Okay, in this video, we're going to talk about equations and problem solving. And so there's a couple of definitions I want to talk about. The first is consecutive integers. Hopefully you know that the word consecutive just means in a row. So when we talk about consecutive integers, we're talking about integers that differ by 1, such as the numbers 20 and 21. Next, we want to talk about consecutive even or consecutive odd integers. In this case, we're talking about integers that differ by 2, such as 13 and 15, or 6 and 8. These are consecutive integers that have two numbers in between them. VIC number 1, or very important concept number 1. Some problems contain 2 or more unknown quantities. To solve such problems, first decide unknown quantity the variable will represent. Then express the other unknown quantity or quantities in terms of that variable. So basically in this video, we're going to do a whole bunch of examples of equations and we're going to solve problems using such equations. So let's look at example number 1. The length of a rectangle is 6 inches more than its width. The perimeter of that rectangle is 6 inches. What is the length of the rectangle? So the first step when you're problem solving is that you have to define your variable. So if W equals width and L is your length, but we're going to put them both in terms of the same variable. So we're going to say that our length is the same as W plus 6. Why did I say that? Well, I said that because the length is 6 inches more than its width. So since I picked W to be my width, I now want to put them both in terms of the same variable. Well, we also know that the perimeter is 24 inches, and we know that we find perimeter by adding all the sides. So I could say that the perimeter is equal to W plus W, W plus W, plus W plus 6 here and W plus 6 here. Because you know that you could go back and add this to all your sides. Now, I could rewrite that as 2 times W plus 2 times W plus 6. Or I could write it this way, 2W, and here I've distributed my 2. 2 times W and 2 times 6. Now, I'm going to replace my P with a 24, because remember, the perimeter is equal to 24. I'm going to combine my like terms. 2W plus 2W gives me 4W. So now I have an equation that I can solve. 24 equals 4W plus 12. So now when I solve it, subtract 12 from both sides, I get 12 equals 4W. When I divide both sides by 4, I find that my width was 3. But remember, I have 2 unknown quantities in this equation, or in this problem, I should say. My width was 3. My length is equal to my width plus 6. So if my width is 3, then my length is going to be 3 plus 6, or 9. So you'll see my final answer over here was that my width equaled 3 and my length equaled 9. Okay, so let's look at another one. Still dealing with perimeter. The width of a rectangle is 2 centimeters less than the length. The perimeter is 16 centimeters. What is the length? So this time I'm going to let L equal the length. And I chose L this time instead of W because our width is given in terms of the length. The length this time is, or the width is given as length minus 2. So this time I said we have L here, which means we also have L here. This I said was L minus 2, which means this one is L minus 2. Since we're given the perimeter, we can say perimeter is equal to 2L plus 2 times L minus 2. Now, if we go ahead and replace P with 16 and distribute that 2, we get 16 equals 2L plus 2L minus 4. 16 equals 4L minus 4. This is just where I combine all my like terms. I'm kind of combining the steps a little faster this time. You should be able to do that. Let's go ahead and solve. I'm going to add 4 to both sides, canceling this one out, making this become 20. Now, divide by 4 on both sides. I find that my length was 4. Remember, my width was equal to length minus 2, so that means that my width would just be equal to 2. Okay, so I'm simply taking the given information and expressing it in terms of one variable so that I have an equation I can solve. Okay. Remember back at the beginning we defined consecutive integers? So let's solve some equations based on consecutive integers. This gets a little tricky for some people, especially when we talk about even and odd integers. We're going to start with just basic consecutive integers. So the sum of 3 consecutive integers is 147. So that should tell you that our equation has to add up to 147. find the integers. So we're going to let n represent our first integer. N plus 1 equals our second integer, and n plus 2 represents our third integer because we want 3 consecutive integers. So I'm going to write my equation as n plus 1 plus n plus 2. If you need to set it apart with parentheses, just so you can see what you're talking about, that's fine. Here's my 3 consecutive integers. Now, I combine my like terms. I have 1, 2, 3 n's, so 3n plus 1, 2, 3, 3, so 3n plus 3 equals 147. Now I'm just going to solve the equation. Subtract 3 from both sides. I get 3n equals 144. Divide both sides by 3. I find out that n equals 48. So my first integer was 48. But now I need to find my 2 consecutive integers. So if n was 48, then n plus 1, or my second integer, becomes 49. N plus 2, my third integer, becomes 50. So my 3 consecutive integers that equal 147 would be 48, 49, and 50. Let's look at another one. The sum of 3 consecutive integers is 48. So again, pick a variable. I'm going to start with x. So my second one is x plus 1. My third one is x plus 2. X plus 1 plus x plus 2 equals 48. Combine your like terms. There's 3 x's plus 3 equals 48. Subtract your 3 out of both sides. You get 3x equals 45. Now divide both sides by 3. You get x equal to 15. So your first number equals 15. To get your second consecutive integer, you add x plus 1, or 15 plus 1, to give you 16. To get your third one, you do 15 plus 2, which gives you 17. So this is dealing with just consecutive integers. Every time you deal with consecutive integers, it's going to be x plus 1 plus x plus 2, and you can keep going regardless of how many consecutive integers it asks for. Okay, so what if it asks for consecutive even or consecutive odd integers? So in this case, it asks for 2 consecutive even integers, and it tells you their sum is 118. Our first integer is x. Our second one is x plus 2. This is because we need a space of 2 numbers in between them. So, just like before, I say x plus 2 equals 118. Combine the like terms just like we did before. 2x plus 2 equals 118. Subtract the 2 from both sides. You get 2x equals 116. Divide both sides by 2. I get my initial number is 58. Is that an even integer? Absolutely. Now, that's my first number. Remember, my second integer comes from adding 2 to the first one. 58 plus 2 gives me 60. Are those consecutive even numbers? Yes, they are. If I'm counting by 2s, I'm going to go 58, 60, 62. I only need 2. 58 and 60 are consecutive even numbers. If I add them together, they equal 118. Okay, so this next one wants 3 consecutive odd integers that equal 81. Starting with x again. I'm still going to add x plus 2. This is where some people get confused and try to add x plus 3 because 2 is an even number. But keep in mind that odd numbers are only 2 numbers apart. 1 to 3 is just 2 numbers, just like 2 to 4. So it's odd integers, we still only do x plus 2. So we're going to do x plus 2, then plus x plus 4. Let's look at why. So combine all of our like terms and solve your equation. So we get 3x plus 6 is equal to 81. Subtract 6 from both sides. We get 3x equals 75. When you divide both sides by 3, you find that x equals 25. 25 is your first integer. Now, remember, we need 3 consecutive odd integers. So that's our first number. To get our second odd integer, we add 2. 25 plus 2 is 27. Still an odd integer, and it is consecutive when counting odd numbers from 25. Now I need a third consecutive odd integer. If I add 4 to 25, because remember our third number is x plus 4, I get 29. That is a third number in a row that is a consecutive odd integer. So don't be confused by the fact that you're adding 2 and 4, even though you're looking for odd integers. So this is how you use equations and consecutive numbers to problem solve.